I got so much to nap this week, I don't know where to start. But I want to try the silver sheen since I think it's the first time I've had this variety. So I'm very curious. I've always heard, you know, kind of not so good things about silver sheen. But I think I may have been napping the very crunchy variety. That snapped pretty easily, but it was really thin there anyway, so probably not a good idea to nap the area that's that thin anyway. So yeah, I'm going to do some obsidian first today. Various types. I got various obsidians I need to get napped, and then I'll get into the harder stuff as the week progresses. Harder in terms of just the stone itself, not necessarily the difficulty level, although some of the harder materials are more difficult. Some of these easier to nap materials are also difficult to get napped cleanly. The terminations on some of this stuff are difficult to predict, and it causes these diving flakes or these step fractures at the end of the flake. I talked about creating there's a couple playlists that I haven't finished yet. One is sharpening, basic sharpening of edges. I've got 2 videos on that so far, but I'm going to redo the video number 2 and just start sharpening right away and make 2 or 3 more sharpening videos to complete that video series. And then I got to make a video for new guys or new people to the channel. That's not a series, that's just one video. And then I got to make a beginner series for those who want to get started in napping the way I do it. Yeah. I mean, you can watch my videos and get the hang of how I do it just by watching all the other videos that I've done, but I'm thinking I need to explain it in simple terms. You know, explain it like you're 5, so to speak, for beginners. Like, explain what I do here. How do I set up these flake removals? How do I set that up so it does this? How do I know how far it's going to travel and blah, blah, blah? Short answer is, I set these up according to my muscle memory, and I don't know how far they're going to travel. I'm not sure. I got an idea, but a lot of times it's just luck. Beginner's luck. And so with beginner's luck on there, I said, okay, I don't need to hit all that hard, so I'm going to try to do the same thing on the next one. And sure enough, this is consistent enough material, and the edge was consistent enough. Like, this spot was obviously very similar to the other spots on the edge, so that I can remove flakes in a similar way with a similar angle. This angle varies a lot depending on the size of the flake and the type of edge or type of striking area. And when I say a lot, it might only seem like a very little bit, but just a little bit of variation makes all the difference. Like from this position to this position, it's barely perceptible. That makes a big difference in how the flake travels. Okay? How much exactly? I don't know. And a lot of it is subconscious. So even if I could analyze it, or even if I, not could, but even if I tried to analyze it, I couldn't get the exact amount. And even if I did get the exact amount, there's the issue of, are you exactly at the same angle? Because these slight variations, like I said, can make all the difference. So even if it looks like you're perfectly on the right angle, and I have an illustration of what angle it is from the front view, and you match it, you get a protractor set up physically to get this angle and then strike it, you may not get the same flake. In fact, you probably will not. Because there are other factors that you have to take into account besides the angle. It's the power of the strike, the shape of the tool tip, the dressing or the quality of the surface of the tool tip, the quality of the material, the amount of support you have backing it up, the weight of your hand, believe it or not, makes a difference, and the amount of mass of the workpiece makes a difference. Luckily, the subconscious in the brain takes care of most of that, and you get a feel for it. It all gets condensed into a feel for it, and your subconscious takes over that part. The human brain, over hundreds of thousands of years, has evolved due to activities like this to take over those tasks, because taking over those tasks is very advantageous to human survival. Those human brains that were able to take over those tasks subconsciously are the ones that survived the best. Not everybody knows how to do it subconsciously. Some people don't have the talent for it, which is perfectly fine. But there is such a thing as having the talent for it and being able to do this subconsciously. And that was not good. Which means this is very snap and half-ish. And what that means is I gotta leave it kind of thick. Yeah. I already broke the tip off of this twice. Yeah. Very surprising. It's surprising because these flakes stay intact, right? And yet the tips have snapped off. So usually when these flakes stay intact and they are full-length flakes, it means it's not snap and half-ish. But for some reason, this one is still very snappish, even though these flakes are coming off without shattering completely. They're intact. It's a strange thing. Yeah. See, these flakes are holding together. Usually they don't hold together with material that's very snappish like this is. So it fools you. It fools you into getting a false confidence. It fooled me thinking that I could hit it hard in a thin area, and I can't. So that's why I lost the tip twice. Now, it could be that there was an incipient crack, which is kind of scary. Maybe there was, and I don't know it, and I'm thinking it's just because it's very snap and half-ish. It's scary because, the unknown is scary. It's not scary in the fact that it's causing fear. It's just scary in the fact that I could just end up breaking the whole thing. Yeah. It's not the usual stuff. And Obsidians or church don't always follow the rules. And even though the subconscious takes over many tasks, it can't always be relied upon to do the right thing, because these materials are different. Okay. And it may start getting very finicky as it gets thinner. Yeah. It may not like to be snapped when it's really thin. Not only because it'll snap, but because these flakes will not run without step fracturing. It's important that the flakes run without step fracturing at the terminations, especially when it starts getting thin. I'm going to make it narrower just as a precaution. So it looks like I'm going to waste some material, but I'd rather waste the width than to snap it in half. So I'm going to waste some width here. Well, I'll take advantage of the fact that I can hit to make it more flakery to get rid of some of the original flake scar. But my primary aim right now is to make it more narrow. But you know, nothing says I can't take advantage of the fact that I'm running flakes to get rid of this original flake scar on that side. Yeah, might as well. And making it more narrow makes it easier for me to run flakes all the way across, because they don't need to be that long. That's the moral of the story for being narrow. In case I wasn't clear. Why am I not wearing a glove? Because I want to make sure I get the feedback. Wearing a glove prevents some of the feel. It prevents some of the feedback that you get when you're trying to judge a new material. And see, I even snapped it off with the Abrader. That means it's very delicate. So this is behaving like other people have said. They said they don't like this silver sheen because it's very snappish. And yeah. It's the same as the silver sheen that I've napped that has a lot of bubbles in it. I thought maybe this would be a higher grade and more flexible, but no, it's extremely brittle. Just like the other silver sheen with the bubbles in it. Okay. So there's no way that I can safely make this thin. I would need to depend on luck if I was going to make a thin point out of this with my skill level. Now, some people's skill level is much higher and they don't have to worry too much about snapping it. But I have to worry too much. Yep. Apparently. So I've already snapped it 3 times. Twice with the percussion tools and once with the Abrader. So what am I doing now? Now that I've got it more narrow, well, I had to fix the tip. But now that I've got it more narrow, I can start running flakes across. And hopefully they'll go across without too much weirdness. If they still are really weird and step fracturing or diving, I got to make it even more narrow so I can get some good clean flakes. And if you'll notice, on artifacts that have a lot of parallel flaking, they're narrow. That's because it's easier to do parallel flaking on something narrow. And they're usually thick in the middle. Even though they might be thin on the ends, they're thick in the middle. So no thinner than this. Yeah. It keeps it nice and convex. Flakes like to go in a curved path. They don't like to be flat. In most cases, good material, quote unquote, will allow you to run flat or nearly flat flakes. Now, does all material that allow you to knap flat flakes good? Is all that material classified as good? No, because some of it is very tough. So you wouldn't classify it as good because it requires an extreme amount of force to remove a flake. And it's fatiguing, and it's also very hard on the tools. So you wouldn't consider that good because there are the cons outweigh the pros. Yeah. So every rule has little exceptions and caveats and nuances. Yeah. The new term these days is nuances. See that? The terminations, I gotta watch that it doesn't step fracture. And what watching means is I gotta make sure the path is really good. I gotta watch the path. When I say watch it, I don't watch the flakes themselves. I watch the path. The path's gotta be good. So when I'm watching, I mean I'm watching the pathway. I'm not watching the flakes and what the previous flake did. I'm watching to see if the next pathway is better than the last pathway. Okay. Yeah, like that. See, that's what I want. Bold, clean flakes, preferably wide like that, so I don't have to keep doing a lot of flakes. If you've watched the channel long enough, you know that I don't like the surfaces to be too flakery. That's what I call it when there's a lot of flakes and a lot of weirdness on the surface. Okay. Yeah, I like these big bold flakes. I gotta watch it that I don't thin it too much, because it'll snap. It's very easy to run long flakes on this stuff. Yeah. Should I make a Clovis? I could, but no. I got a lot of Clovises to make still. But no, I don't like making Clovises out of Obsidian, for one. And number two, Clovises are a different mindset entirely than this. This is a teardrop preform. Teardrop shaped preform, which is my typical preform that I like to make. It's just thinned gradually around the edges. There's no big thinning flakes from anywhere except the sides in the early stages. In the later stages, there's a few more flakes than this, but I try to limit the amount of flakes in the final stages. And flakes from the side are a different mentality than flakes from the base. Believe it or not, the flakes from the base require a different mindset. They run a little bit better than the flakes from the side. All things being equal, the flakes from the base run a little bit better. I think it's because there's more mass resisting it in this direction. There's more mass there than there is here. There's less wobbling, for one. This wobbles a lot this way. There's less wobbling that way. And number two, there's more mass behind it to resist the force, so you don't lose energy. Okay, I've got to not overthink this and not get it too thin. Once I have the surface cleaned up, I can do anything I want with it. Because then all it requires is shaping around the edges and notching. Once I get the surface cleaned up, that's the most straightforward way of doing these. It does not mean that that's the way they did it in the past. That's just the most straightforward way. Yeah, apparently, if you look at lots of artifacts, apparently there were many different approaches to thinning, to general shaping, to creating the preforms. A preform is a shape that's already headed toward the final shape of the piece you intend to make. Yeah, I gotta clean up that tip a little bit later. There's still some crunchiness, I call it. So I'll make that smoother later with more flaking. Okay, so now moving the edge this way. It is getting pretty thin. I'm taking some risk. Hopefully I won't need too many more flakes to remove some of these bulbs, these lumps, I mean. See, this is lumpy in the middle. Used to be flatter. And yeah, this is a lump too right there. This is kind of a lump here, but I'll get those later. But just with short pressure flakes or whatever, short percussion flakes. I can get these with short percussion or pressure flakes. These little bulges, bumps, especially that one. I don't want to do it yet on this tip yet. I need to get more flakes under my belt getting used to this material, because tips are the hardest for me to get correct. So I'll wait. I can do it now. It's smarter to get this thin now, but I gotta wait to get more used to the material. Okay. This needs a lot of grinding. Luckily it grinds down easily, so I don't have to spend so much time to grind it well. Yeah. But even so, it step fractures easily. Ha, I did it. Yeah, see, it remains intact. It's so mysterious why it would snap so easily. It should be flexible enough for me to, you know, be adventurous. But apparently, it snaps in half easily. Or the tips snap off easily, at least. Alright, so I think I can tackle some of these lumps up near the tip. I'm getting used to the material. Yeah. was thinking of doing this with pressure flakes, but now that I'm here, yeah, it crushes a lot with percussion. So I'll stop that and just finish this out on the other parts. Being very careful to not attempt flakes that are going really far. Not at this stage where it can break easily. I've already got all the long flakes that I need. There's some excessive step fracturing going on in the middle of this one, but I think I can take those out on the next round of flaking after I knock off some of these weak areas. I still want to get it more narrow, yeah, but you got to have it kind of wide if you want to ensure you have enough edge after you finish thinning, or have enough width after you finish thinning. Yeah, I don't want to take off too much width and then go, dang it, in order to thin it, it's got to get way too narrow. It is getting a little bit too thin to do what I want. Yeah, when the edge gets thin, it does that. Why is the edge getting thin? Because the whole thing is getting thin. And the edge is part of the whole thing. I gotta think really hard about these final flakes. And someone might say, well, you should be thinking really hard about all the flakes. Every one of them. Think really hard. Well, I don't want to exhaust myself in the beginning. I gotta pace myself, just like running a race. If I exhaust myself too soon, the finishing isn't gonna look pretty. I'll be too tired to put in the mental effort to be extremely careful at the end. And someone might say, hey, you're just wimpy. That's such a wimpy attitude. Yep, it's a wimpy attitude because I wimp out at the end. Those subtle little changes when you're fatigued can make the difference between a nice point and a beautiful point. If I'm not tired at the end, it's much more likely that I can produce a nice smooth finish. So I take the easy way out, take shortcuts, and do stupid stuff in the beginning because it's less fatiguing. And I've learned to live with it because that's another aspect. Some people, they just cannot have mistakes in the beginning because that's what makes them mentally fatigued if they see mistakes. What makes me mentally fatigued is thinking too much about each one. The mistakes don't get to me as much as thinking about how to make perfect flakes. Yep. some people, it's just exhausting looking at flakes that are not beautiful. Voila. I say voila a lot. It's a French word. It's so funny that many of my subscribers, they don't know how to spell it. They must not be from Louisiana. Although I have some loyal subscribers from Louisiana. They don't speak French down there no more. I know they do in Canada. So, okay. The Canadians know what I'm talking about. Or they know how to spell it. It still looks a little bit wonky right there. Let's try it. No. I got a feeling it's not going to look less wonky. Yeah, it's just going to get all crunchy. Instead of making it look better, it's just going to get crunchy. Dang it. I got to get rid of some of those crunchy spots. Let's try some pressure. I haven't tried pressure flaking on it yet, so it might be easy to pressure flake. And I don't have to worry about these little percussion flakes that make it all crunchy. I got to pressure flake with gloves on because I always get flakes between my skin and the tool, and the skin and the pad and the workpiece and all that. Always. Never fails, and it distracts me. Alright, let's try some pressure flakes. No, not like that. Let's see. Yeah, see, I can do a relatively long pressure flake, but it takes its toll on the edge. Okay. Yeah, so as long as I don't go too far with those flakes. Yeah, okay. I'll be jumping around at random. I just wanted to see how it would flake at the tip there, just out of curiosity. Yeah, nice, pretty good sized pressure flakes. But yeah, it takes its toll. That's not good. Well, I'm at a spot where I should have known better. So it might not take its toll that bad. Yeah. I should have known better than to just quickly hit press on that without taking a look. So now I got to take back the edge, which it's okay. I need to move the edge that way anyway, because I'm trying to flake this side. I was going to do a pass all the way down. This will make it a little bit easier to run the flakes, so I don't have to push as hard. You can run flakes without the edge being close to that surface you're running flakes on. You can, this edge can be in the middle or above center line. It can be at center line or above center line. It's better if it's at center line or a little bit below. But you know, I try to preserve width, so I don't always move the edge. With my style of knapping, I like to preserve the width because it gives me options. Unless the width, the disadvantages of having the width are greater than the advantages. The disadvantages would be like if the long flakes terminate in a weird way, so you gotta do shorter flakes. That kind of thing. I'm going to be going to one side and the other side here. I'm not going to stay on one side only. Wouldn't it be better if I had a pad with a slot? Yes, sometimes yes. But I'd rather work with a domed pad because I can use it for more things. I don't have to keep changing pads, you know. Some people do everything on a slotted pad. I know. I just can't do everything on a slotted pad. Even if it's a domed slotted pad, especially when I'm working the tips, I like to be able to support the tip on the pad. And I can do that on a slotted domed pad too. But once in a while, I'll get into the habit of getting too close to the slot and mess it up somehow. I don't know how I do it. I bridge it. You know, it causes a bridging between the pressure point. I mean, I'm causing a bridge on either side of the pressure point. That's what bridging means. I tend to do that. Okay. I do it without thinking. My subconscious is not good enough to prevent bridging. It hasn't learned a lesson. I don't know if it is able to understand the concept of bridging. It doesn't seem to pick up on that. So I snap a lot of points on the slotted pads. I don't like the way it's looking with the heavy pressure, so I'm going to go back to percussion. Even though the percussion doesn't look that great either. At least it's easier with percussion. I'd rather do a QWERTY job more easily than a QWERTY job with a lot of effort. Yeah. Okay, all right. Besides, these gloves are annoying. Yeah. It doesn't feel like I should need gloves with this soft material. So they're annoying. What happened there? My finger caught on something. Step fracture? Yeah, right there. As I was brushing across, it caught on something. Come on. At some point, you got to stop being so crunchy. And yeah, I'm brushing with the file. It's not just doing this. I'm brushing to knock off weak areas. I think the weak areas are messing me up. It doesn't like isolated platforms. Actually, it doesn't like any platforms. It's very crunchy. I'm having to hit in a strange way. Instead of following through, I'm just tapping like that. Do I follow through? Yeah, but the follow through usually is very subtle follow through. So it looks like I'm always just tapping. But sometimes I follow through a little bit more than this. Or I shouldn't say sometimes. I think most of the time I follow through more than this. But it seems like I just need to just tap it for this particular piece. And I can follow through on the thicker areas, but on the thinner areas, it likes limited contact. I don't know why. Not like that. Okay. Maybe I should have taken a longer nap. Did I take a nap? I thought I took a nap. I was also watching a movie to fall asleep. I didn't take a very long nap. I should have taken a longer nap. I'm having a hard time staying awake for this. I'm already bored with it. I get bored with it if it requires too much pampering. I'm not saying it doesn't look good. I like it a lot. The material, I like the material a lot. But it's getting on my nerves because it requires so much pampering. Such a delicate little subtle touch. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's such a subtle little tiptoe flake. And it didn't even terminate well. So much pampering for these flakes and they don't even terminate well. But that's the nature of it. Did it do it? Yes, yes. Okay. We're getting there. We're almost there yet. Yeah, these are such tiptoe flakes. Tiptoe through the tulips. I don't know how else to describe it. Come on. You're not that tough. There it is. Okay, so first stage, preform. That's it. The next stage is notching and sharpening. So I gotta answer a phone call. You know, I get phone calls from the nurses and the social worker and all kinds of people from the hospice, so I got to answer that call. Okay, so I'll finish this up on the next segment. What is the ratio? Let's say it's 42 millimeters wide. I can cheat and say 5, 8 to 1. 8 to 1 is good. I think that's as thin as I dare go with it. Yeah. Of course, it's not as good up here with the thickness ratio because it looks pretty steady, constant. But I measure, you know, from a relatively wide point, relatively wide area on the point. Okay, so yeah, I'll finish it up on the next segment. I like the way the surface looks now compared to how it was a little bit earlier. Except here near the tip. It's still crunchy right there. But yep, there you go. That's it so far. Next segment.